The ending of a weird week is here. I'm Thomas Carr. Penn State football gets back to some normal stuff when they take the field. Koenig Stadium at night. Not ideal to have that game right after you fired your head coach and your starting quarterback has gone down with an injury for the rest of the season. I'm Thomas Carr. These are the 5 things we're looking for coming up. Penn State versus Nebraska Saturday night. So the good news is here, like with all the turmoil of this week, it's Nebraska. So like if we're looking for things like we're trying to do the game and predictive and all that stuff that we try to do to get you ready for the game, it's fairly obvious who Nebraska is. Copy and paste every single year what they are and what they do. It's what they're doing and who they are this year. It's just varying degrees of talent level and what they have been able to accomplish in terms of roster building from year to year. But everything they do is the same, and they generally do it the same way. They're all coached really well. So on the Penn State side of things, more wild cards. We'll get to those basically at number 5 and then number 1, although there are some things that are going to stay consistent from previously to now because interim head coach Terry Smith can't fix some of these things in just a week. That's crazy. Before we get going, and I know like the pre-opening spiel, nobody loves to sit here and listen to me yammer without giving you the goods, but just as a quick reminder, subscribe, like, rate, review, hug, high five, give us the fist bump, whatever it is, on whatever platform that you're watching this on. If you're listening on the podcast version, please make sure you subscribe to our stuff. Give us a 5-star review. It's big time for everybody, right? So there's a lot of new stuff going on. A lot of new people might be interested. So you helping us share this is how we reach new people. Word of mouth. And the word of mouth on the internet is you interacting with our content. And of course, the place to get most of the content. And speaking of that coaching search, bluewhiteillustrated.com. Right off the bat, it's $1 for 7 days to get in and get the coaching search information. We have our message board thread, our weekly chat that's going on this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where we're getting into all the details and Nate Bauer's answering questions about what's going on and what he sees in the coaching search. So that's all that stuff to start. Now, number 5.
Number 5.
So there's going to be a lot of numbers in this article, but to start off, it's pretty simple. It's actually more of a question than a thing to look for here at number 5. And let's start with one thing that Terry Smith has made very clear. He will not tolerate less than everything you've got to give on every play.
One thing I won't accept is a lack of effort. And the guys know that. It's just, they understand that. And, you know, we hope we're going to win, but we're going to play hard, and you guys will be sitting there saying, yeah, these guys played hard, and then the result is the result, you know, but they're going to play hard, Sam.
So something else we learned from him earlier this week is that he benched A.J. Harris, the team's starting corner, a guy that he described as an All-American candidate earlier in the year. So his best corner that had started every single game. Everyone else was rotating but him, basically. Darius Dixon was his backup, and so nobody's really rotating with A.J. Harris. And then he gave up a touchdown in the first half against Northwestern on a post corner. Kind of a double move, but not really. And A.J. Harris didn't see the rest of the field. They didn't see the field after that for the rest of the game. So he's willing to bench his starter, which he admitted he did. I don't know if that was for a lack of effort or not, or if that was for performance or whatever that might be, but it is very clear that he's willing to do that. And now he's the man in charge. So what does that mean for the rest of the roster? He talked about the offense when he was asked about, are you going to make any personnel changes on that side of the ball? And basically what he said is like, I got to get my head on straight because this is all very new to me. So not making any major changes this week. But like if you're not giving your full effort, somebody else is going to be on the field. He's made that very clear. And that could be on the offense. It could be on the defense. Could be at any position. So be like head on a swivel. We don't know what that means going into the game. He seems to think that he's not going to make a lot of changes. And by the way, they're already, I think, on the way to Iowa if you're watching this video. So he's like, I doubt that they had enough time to change major things. But in game, it's one thing I'm looking for is who's on the field and what do we know about the guy replacing him? Might learn some stuff. Speaking of things we already know, that's number 4.
Number 4.
It's the Iowa offensive line, brought to you by 2005. This is this offensive line, a throwback, whatever you want to call it. It could be brought to you by pancakes, brick walls, whatever you want. Like this is a really good offensive line. I think I've been spoiled in the history of watching Iowa, of like the Tristan Wirfs and the James Daniels who've come through there, of being insane athletes and being outliers in their abilities and the production that they've had over time of producing first-round draft pick offensive linemen. I think some of these guys could go in the first round, but the thing is they're all 6'5", they're all 310. They don't necessarily stand out when you look at them. Then they start moving, and I'm exaggerating. They're not all 6'5", 310, but a lot of them are about 6'5", and about 310. So three guys that I think do stand out within the group. There are not any obvious or severe weaknesses, but the three guys that stand out, my favorite, and this is kind of a pick your flavor sort of thing, left guard Bo Stevens, really good pass protector, awesome base, super balanced, and then aggressive and technically really good in the run game. Hands, fitting, drive, nastiness, all those things. Logan Jones, the center, same thing. Aggressive, explosive off the ball. And then Jennings Dunker, I think is how you say his name. He is the right tackle, another mauler, and these guys are great in pass protection as well. So they're athletic, they move well, and they're strong, and they all have size. Penn State is athletic and moves well. Strength, TBD, not great this year, and production in the passing game, they've actually been better than it seems. But also, it's not good compared to where Penn State has been and what they need in the moment with the way the defensive structure is being attacked. So Iowa, really good in pass protection. And like I said, there's a ton of numbers in this article. Another great reason to subscribe so you can read all of it, get the in-depth details. I can't, if I just rattle them off to you and you're listening to this podcast, I know how it is. If there's anything else going on my phone, I'm going to tune out. I'm not going to pay attention. So read that. That's an attention focus sort of thing. I am going to give you some of the numbers here, though. And that gets into number 3, because Penn State, so to sum up what we just said, the Penn State's defensive line is going to have a long game because they have not been good at stopping the run. Here comes a really well-trained offensive line that is good at run blocking. The only time I've seen them really struggle at anything, and I mean struggle in terms of miss assignments and maybe not get the same push across the board, has been against Iowa State and Indiana. And the common thing there is it was specifically with their bread and butter zone plays, their outside zone, and it was against an odd front, which is already a clash, right? That's what the odd front does, is it stops the zone blocking. It's harder for them. So hard on hard, they haven't done amazing, but other than that, they've been a really good run stuffing unit. And also, Penn State doesn't run an odd front, so it doesn't really fit in this game. There's nothing that you see on film that goes, oh, okay, Penn State can do X, Y, or Z. Other than Terry Smith saying playing harder or playing hard. I don't know which one it is. Going to be a long one. And they like to put together drives, as all Iowa teams do. So that's number 3.
Number 3.
It's one thing if the opponent is averaging, let's say 4.5, 5 yards a carry, but you get a couple tackles for loss, and then you got stingy pass defense. You can overcome one if you have the other in a game plan. But what you can't overcome is both. And Penn State is giving up both right now. And it is very concerning for this particular game because I think I've said this earlier this week. Iowa is a souped-up version of Northwestern. And Northwestern ended the game with the ball in their hands in a soul-sucking drive that we've only ever seen Ohio State and Michigan do to Penn State historically. And only once a year. It's never happened to them twice in the year by two different teams. It's always been one memorable game where the run defense was just catastrophically bad, even in just a situation. And now Northwestern's able to do it. UCLA has been able to do it. Oregon did it. Oregon was kind of the last good performance. But here's the problem. Penn State's pass defense under 10 yards really matches up weakness with strength with what you might expect from Iowa, which is Mark Gronowski. He's a really good game-managing quarterback. So here are the numbers. His completion percentage under 10 yards, including those passes behind the line of scrimmage, he's completed 84% of those. Penn State's completion percentage allowed under 10 yards, 90%. 90% of the passes that have gone out of the quarterback's hands into zones, man coverage, whatever it is under 10 yards, 90% of them have been completed. Now, it is hard to stop throws behind the line of scrimmage. You're always going to have a higher completion percentage of these shorter throws than intermediate or deep. But 90% is 4th worst in the conference. That's not good. That's going to be, and that is what teams have done. Run the ball, Dink and dunk. That's all you need. I think that this is not necessarily, even with those numbers, this is not necessarily a strong passing unit. The H-back tight end drops a lot of passes. I don't feel like they have any dynamic catch and run athletes. And I say all of that knowing Penn State's allowed those things to happen against subpar teams. So this is my assessment of Iowa. And it might be independent of my assessment of how they'll do against Penn State, because these are some really bad matchup numbers for Penn State here. So the offense having the ball, it is in doubt on Saturday. If they get 3 possessions in the first half again, I'm not going to be necessarily all that surprised. So that's going to be the biggest challenge for Terry Smith is how do you fix those problems? I don't think that there's a fix to the run game. It is what it is. You're going to have to do whatever you need to do to get a couple tackles for loss. But fixing the passing game feels like that is somehow manageable. Like it's somehow manageable, especially given Gronowski's work on deep passes, which are not great. So if you can allocate more resources to stopping those, you might have a chance of bottling up this offense. Might, maybe, could. You know how I'm phrasing all this stuff? So let's get to number 2, and we're going to focus now back onto the Penn State offense and the Iowa defense.
Number 2.
So there's some things here. We're going to start with the Iowa defense from their blitz and coverage perspective, and then we're going to get into Penn State's attack of it for number 1. And it's really interesting watching on film. And again, I said this, I went to Indiana first to watch that film, and Iowa's defense struggled, right? But Indiana is a much better team than Penn State is this year. Talent is an irrelevant conversation at this point because whatever's going on with the Nittany Lions, they are not playing up to their talent level across the board. And maybe their talent level was over-exaggerated and the pieces don't fit well this year. Whatever it is, the expectation should be lowered a little bit. And what Indiana did against Iowa is definitely not what Penn State can do against Iowa. But there are some seeds. If we're looking for, like, you're telling me there's a chance, here are some things that I've noticed. Iowa needs to blitz to get pressure against Big Ten teams. So in their game against Rutgers, who got out to a hot start, and eventually Iowa, overtook them in the second half. But Rutgers scored 28 points. And then against Indiana, Iowa had to blitz. Half of their blitzes came in those 2 games. So if Penn State can prevent easy pressure with 4, and Iowa is like sitting at 8th in the Big Ten right now in pressure with 4, which isn't bad. It's just not, I think, what I've come to expect from Iowa, at least having one talented pass rusher, having a defensive tackle that you can't handle, something like that. So against Big Ten teams this year, Iowa's blitzed 52 times. They have just 2 sacks, and I apologize. I think that's actually against all Power 4 teams, which includes Iowa State. But they've thrown a lot of bodies at Big Ten offensive lines, and they've only gotten 2 sacks. There are opportunities if you can prevent them from getting home. And again, going back to what Indiana did, is at the end of that game, Iowa got blitz crazy because they couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. And then they sent a cover 0 blitz. Indiana hit a pass over the middle, broken tackle on a slant, and then there was a touchdown. Classic case of being too aggressive too many times in a row. Is Penn State able to make them do that? Is Penn State offense... Here's the thing, is like, the Penn State offensive line, in theory, could be good enough to prevent pressure with just 4, which means they need to blitz. But Penn State's running backs, it doesn't matter if it's Katron Allen or Nick Singleton, have been dreadful for most of their career pass blocking. They have not been able to meet the blocker in the hole and prevent serious pressure. So if Iowa does blitz, they might get home. You got a freshman quarterback. He's an elusive guy in the pocket, but I don't know how that's going to work out. So Penn State needs to be able to protect, because the only opportunity that they're going to have is to throw against a blitz. Because on average, when Iowa doesn't have to blitz, they have a suffocating defense. They're really good at squeezing zones, understanding where pass patterns are going, and playing zone, but taking away a lot of different options. So even then, I think Ethan Grunkemeyer could operate some plays against that. But if you want to give him a better picture, you want to make them blitz, not have them blitz when they want to. And that has been a theme I've seen from them this year. When you make them blitz, there are opportunities. So let's talk about those opportunities.
Number 1.
Yeah, the freshman quarterback chucking the ball down the field. This is where we are. Ethan Grunkemeyer's debut against Penn State. If you didn't see it, bluewhiteillustrated.com, I gave you the 4 throws you need to know to get to know Ethan Grunkemeyer on the site earlier this week. And essentially, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it here, but I got the video breakdown of 4 passes that I think are indicative of his personality and his traits. He is a quick release, smart, aggressive, and strong-armed quarterback. So those all of those traits in this game could lead to Penn State taking some shots. And I think that would be a good plan because, if there's one thing that I think Iowa has gotten away with this year, it's their deep passing coverage, because what you see on film does not match the data. It does not match the numbers. They have not given up a ton of deep passes, considering how many there have been. They have had 37 deep passes against this year, which is tied for the most in the Big Ten. And you might think why? Against a too high team? Why would teams be attacking them so much down the field? And it's because what's on film isn't great, but the results haven't really materialized against this defense. Is this the week to do it? I don't know. But if I'm saying, where's the opportunity, this is what I'm talking about. So the outside corners especially. The safeties have given up some plays. But the outside corners specifically. Deshaun Lee has given up 145 yards on deep attempts this year. TJ Hall, I think, has given up 0 passing attempts, which is good for him. But there have been 8 dropped or missed open targets against this secondary, against him specifically this year. Number 2, look out there. He has been a little bit happy feet out there. He has bitten on a couple things. He's gotten beat deep. He's constantly in a recovery position against players that can stack him and get to the second, through the line of scrimmage and get off the press or get around him in off coverage. Can Penn State's wide receivers do that? Absolutely, maybe not. I don't know. Probably not. We haven't seen it this year. But if you're going to throw one up to Kyron Hudson, this is the game to do it, I think. If you're going to try and get Devontae Ross singled against one of these 2 corners and try and manipulate the defense to get a one-on-one for Grunkemeyer to throw down the field, we haven't seen him throw deep outside the numbers. That's an area I want to see. But he has been very good at throwing up the seam. He has been very good at aggressively throwing the ball down the field. He made 1 mistake and then 3 really good throws, and that's what I went through on the recap earlier this week. So those are our 5 things to watch for. I don't want to say that it's on Ethan Grunkemeyer, but if they get 1 or 2 shots, which I think they're going to need to get in this game, that could even just breathe life into the offense, right? Make Iowa unsure, and then you might get them to back off, and you might get some running yards, but that's going to be a tough one. I think I overestimated the weakness of those Iowa defensive tackles earlier this week. They aren't necessarily big, but what they do is they absorb blocks, and they allow guys to get to the ball. So Penn State, I don't think, is going to steamroll them, at least on every single play, because we haven't seen that this year. So to me, a lot of this is, can they get a couple? Because these plays are there in the secondary. I don't know if they can hit them, but they got a new quarterback and a wild card in this game. So we'll see what he can do. So those are your 5 things to watch for. Again, the full article at bluewhiteillustrated.com with all the nitty-gritty details. And of course, coming up tomorrow at 4 p.m., it is the Penn State Football Tailgate Show. We'll get into more of this, more of Iowa, and of course, we're going to be talking to you throughout the weekend over at bluewhiteillustrated.com with the postgame show coming up afterwards, immediately following Penn State versus Iowa. It's a full weekend of Penn State football. Just because of all the drama doesn't mean we're doing less or we're not paying as much attention. It's even more because there's more things to learn about the Nittany Lions this week, and we'll do it all with you here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel.